I know I've already posted one video today, but I've had this thought about a framework for personal revelation by Elder Rasband. I mean, not Elder Elder Renlund for a while, and so I'm going to go ahead and go there. I just got out of a conversation where someone told me about impressions they've had for themselves, impressions that blatantly, clearly contradict the prophet's teachings, the major prophetic teachings that we've recently been receiving, as a matter of fact. And you know, I think there's a little bit of trunkiness there. Perhaps someone who's put a lot of effort into it in the past and has chosen to, as leaders like J. Reuben Clark would say, release themselves early uh, while the Lord's work is still going on, while the day of labor is still going. Um, we have been exhorted to defend the Constitution. We've been exhorted to uh, use the methods of peacemakers, the words of peacemakers, the manners of peacemakers. We've been nevertheless told to know the Constitution, to understand that it is God given, that part of what it does. Now, look, and I've told this lady, uh, I've studied the Articles of Confederation. Honestly, had we been a moral and religious enough people, the Articles of Confederation would have been enough. Had we been a moral enough and religious enough people, having a king would have been enough. Um, the thing about the Constitution, for anybody who studies it, well, look at the principles that President Oaks brought up. Principles 1 through 5. The compound republicanism, which I still plan on doing the video of that. But it is, while John Adams did say it is wholly inadequate to the government of anything other than a moral and religious people, it is set up in such a way that it has so many safeguards that even as the people begin to struggle with a lack of morality and religiosity or religiousness, however you want to say it, that it still puts the brakes on them, puts the brakes on them, puts the brakes on, and you really have to work at plowing through it. Kind of like the way parents in the modern days have put safeguards on their internet and things like that. So many things. Yes, there's ways, workarounds, or whatever I would imagine. I don't know, but that's what the Constitution is. That's those inspired principles, those 5 inspired principles. But now I want to go ahead and get to the principle of, again, uh, framework for personal revelation. First off, Elder Renlund says, yes, personal revelation is massive without the constant guiding companionship of the Holy Ghost. For example, we've been told, directing companionship, what have you, we will not survive spiritually. However, we've also been told quite clearly, you're not going to receive revelation that contradicts what the prophets have taught us. You're not going to receive some new doctrine, some new classification, some new thing for the members of the church to start focusing on. It's not going to be taught in secret meetings with, retired lawyers who now think they have all these insights on revelation. At some point, those things are going to go bad, right? But instead, you have to keep that straight. You're not, our 2 Nephi 32 says you have to study the words of Christ. And first, the first section of Doctrine and Covenants says, whether by mine own voice or by the birth voice of my servants, it is the same. And now, so that means, okay, the prophet is the servant, right? So if you're not studying his words and discerning carefully, you're not studying the words of Christ. And if you're not studying the words of Christ, your gift of the Holy Ghost is gone, right? So that framework for personal revelation, it has to fall within the doctrine, within the words of Christ, whether by my own voice or by the voice of my servants. It is the same. And this is what we are being told, to step up to the plate regarding the Constitution, regarding constitutional forms of government, regarding freedom of religion, regarding opening the doors for missionary work all around the world. We have been told, perhaps like Jonah of Nineveh at times, or Jonah and Nineveh at times, get out there and do it. I don't care if it's awkward and you don't think it's going to work. I've called you to do it. Go do it. Okay? Labor in the vineyard while the day is, keep laboring in the vineyard. Keep pleading for these people. Keep trying your best. But I think there's one more big important connection here. 5 years ago, there's reasonable evidence that something went wrong. in the 2020 election. And right after the 2020 election, though, the bigger deal is President Oaks gave the Defending Our Divinely Inspired Constitution talk. And which is exactly the kind of thing that if you've studied the words of past prophets, John Taylor, for example, you would have expected had some corrupt stuff been happening, which that seems to be the case. And by the way, thank you to all the channels. By the way, I've heard so much coverage of the Constitution, spiritual survival, messages of Christ, and now today, oh, who's that guy who always does the historical church sites lessons and stuff like that? He's great. He dug into the prophecies regarding the Constitution. Man, you guys are amazing, and I feel so blessed to even make my little dent, my little bit of information. But here we are 5 years later, and if you're losing patience, let me recommend that you not. Samuel the Lamanite was 5 years prior to 3rd Nephi 1. There was a lot of patience being lost, a lot of concern, and especially it seems about religious liberty.